This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Pivot My Biz. Are you struggling to break through a revenue wall or frustrated with team dynamics? Feel like you're spending too much time working in the business as opposed to on it? Did you know Pivot members regularly see 2 times the revenue growth and up to 5 times the operating profits in their first 2 years with Pivot? At Pivot My Biz, we transform your business challenges into growth opportunities. We help restoration business owners to create proven processes, real success stories, and results that liberate them from their business. Find out more at pivotmybiz, that's biz.com. Hey Restorers, thanks for checking out this episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today I'm excited to be joined by another friend in the industry who has worn many hats and is wearing a new hat as of late. It's Mitch Byrom, so you probably know him as a trainer and working in software and as knows how to dry things and knows the science of the industry, and I don't even know what else. He jack of all trades, knows a lot about restoration in general. And so now he has something new and exciting kind of happening that I'm sure has been in the works for a long time. So I'm excited to dig into this a little bit and learn more about Restoration OS, which is a new software platform. Hopefully you've been paying attention to CNR and seen a few nods here and there for it. And then Mitch has been around at shows and stuff like that so far this year talking about it. So Mitch, I am very excited to have you here. So I'm going to kick it over to you and have you start by sharing a little bit about your background in the industry. There's a lot of parts to it. So go for it.
Well, I'm so intimidated now. Like, I don't know if you could even breathe through that. You're so good at this, right? So, that's really good. That's experience there. So, yeah, won't claim to be as good of an interviewer as a restoration person, but yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's super exciting. I've been watching these from the sidelines a little bit, and like wishing I would like get out there a little bit more. And when you're doing a new startup and bringing a new product to the market, you have to do things that make you uncomfortable.
That's
So
right.
I've been teaching and training for a long time in this industry. Started at Dry's and as a trainer in 2011, became WRT and ASD trainer there. So I've been in front of people a lot, talking about training, doing the IICRC courses, teaching the Exactimate classes. Before that, I was a restorer. Obviously, was kind of raised in this business, whether I wanted to be or not. My first fire job, I think I was 11, and I remember telling my uncle I didn't want to do this work, and it was dirty and nasty. And he said, "You better go to college, or you're going to be in the family construction business." And but no, I am raised in the restoration industry, and went to teaching and training has been a big passion of mine. I just felt like the field needed when I was an IICRC student sitting in the classroom looking up at, Kurt Bolden's and Sonny Bass's and Rachel Adams and all them. And I was like, man, I want to do that one day. It's going to be great. So then I focused on doing that and growing, and had a lot of fun doing that, and have been doing that, still do it. But that gave me a lot of opportunities to get involved with technology and get involved with, at Dry-Ease. I get to help with the dehumidifiers and get to work with some of the people patenting those things. I got really curious in that and realized there's a lot that goes into that, right? And the people designing the systems aren't necessarily the people that use them. I got to learn the difference between engineering and contractors' opinions of what things should do. But no, I got to meet Garrett Gray. Next year, left being a trainer to go to Next Gear. We opened up the Next Gear University. Got to help build out some of the, you probably, if anyone remembers Dry Link, right? Back before Mika and Moisture Mapper were part of Next Gear, before even Client Runner was. And we got to build that out. Got to do the first Exactimate integration for our industry, which was really exciting and scary at the same time, because we didn't really start with an official integration, right? And then it becomes official after
Yep.
it gets really big, right? So that was a lot of fun. I tipped my hat to Garrett and the team at Next Year. I got to learn a lot about technology there and software, and we got to do a lot of great things. After a couple exits into that, right? After the Mika, we were kind of competing like Dry Link and Mika and Moisture Mapper, and after everyone consolidated, it kind of wasn't competitive anymore, and it was kind of just like we were the 800-pound gorilla when we started as like the newbies.
Yep.
So ended up stepping out of that and kind of wanting to help with consulting, right? Open up my own restoration company as well. I still had a passion for restoration. I like teaching it. I kind of thought about making a guinea pig company to see if I can train someone to run a company that didn't really come from the industry.
Okay.
And I'm a real OCD, hands-on type of guy, so I thought maybe that would be a good way for me to try to learn to like to delegate and watch and manage. The training and consulting is great. I got to do a lot of consulting, help a lot of people grow. But what does everyone say about their consultant? If you're doing really well, you say like the consultant was just the coach. I did all the work. If you're doing really bad, you're like, well, that guy gave me terrible advice, right?
Yes.
So, it's kind of, I guess it's like being a good parent, right? Like if your kid does really good, you don't get to go around saying like, oh, they're really great because I was a good parent. And then if they're doing really bad and they're in jail or drugs or something,
Terrible
they're like,
parents.
what type of parents did you have?
Yes.
Like, oh, it all started with my dad. He traveled too much.
Yep.
So I figured it was a good kind of, it's also good for sales and marketing, right? Like when you're saying I can help you do this or fix your company, and trust me, I know this, right? Well, the easiest thing to do is say, well, if you know this so well, or you've done it so well, why aren't you still doing it, right? So open the restoration company, and really that's kind of what drove us to the software. I was planning on just using off the shelf stuff, and my team was complaining about this and that, and of course I'm looking at the bills, and I'm realizing we got a $2 million small market company spending thousands of dollars a month on software, and I'm like, wow, like this really adds up. And
Yep.
me being the tech nerd and the trainer, I want us to have the 3D scanning and the moisture. So I want us to have everything that I know is expected of a
Yep.
21st century restorer. And then I realized the ticket kept going up and the customer service kept going down. And I said, well, like maybe this is a good spot. Maybe this means that we need another product. And I probably wouldn't have thought that a couple of years ago. I would have thought it was insane to make another app. And that's kind of what drove me to it, honestly. Opening up our restoration company is kind of what drove me to this newest hat, which is let's give something that's kind of all in one to everybody.
Okay, so dig into that a little bit more. What were you seeing from the people in your company that were saying, like, here, if we could solve these three problems for restorers, especially when it comes to technology, like, what were some of those key problems that you were seeing on repetition?
Yeah, that's a good question. All of our technicians are younger,
Hmm.
right? So
Yep.
my son's 20 years old, right? And I gave him the speech, you're going to college or oh, I don't want to go to college, Dad. I want to do a trade. I'm like, all right, I promise you're going to want to go to college after like a year working in family business. So brought my son in. Obviously, he's got a bunch of friends, 18 to 20-year-old kids, right? So that's a lot of our workforce for technicians,
Hmm.
right? And it's hard to recruit, the
Yep.
issues that we're having. The guys that have a bunch of skills and certifications, they are not good with technology and they're really expensive and they probably work for someone. So you have to get them to break a non-compete, then you have to bring them over here. Then they have to complain because you don't use the app that they use and they really hate technology anyway. And then you realize that like um, their opinion of how you should do something is very ingrained in them because they've been doing it for a long time.
Hmm.
So then like, you kind of inherit the best and the worst of where they come from, right?
Yes.
And I'm trying to
Yes.
say this carefully. So I thought, you know what? Why don't we? I'm a trainer. Why don't we just build technicians? So the techs were complaining about the complexity of some of the products that we use, right? Like I got to draw a sketch. Like I remember how hard it was to teach, a 19-year-old to draw a sketch, and like he's never used a tape measure, and then now he's doing a Bluetooth tape, and then now I'm trying to teach him to sketch by hand, and I'm like, this kind of feels crazy, at this day and age to be teaching
Hmm.
these young kids. And these young kids, their skill set's not the tape measure. Their skill set is the app. Their skill set is, you know,
Yeah.
quick, adaptable, not construction skills, right?
Yep.
Um, so yeah, they were having complaints about, how to sketch. We're having complaints about, we had one app that was great for photos and they really liked a lot, had checklists and stuff, but it wouldn't work offline, right? So that was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then our industry is changing a lot right now,
Yes.
and it's shifted to like when I was raised in the business, and a lot of people that they're raised like ride and run, like the
Yes.
estimator writes in and runs the job. That's kind of a big thing. And the company started separating to estimators and project managers, but you can still, I think it's probably 50-50 if you argue who does what. But there's this new model that came about, which with the invention of things like Matterports and DocuSketches, which is the remote estimator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you think of like Andy McCabe, think of Bobby Payne, Epic Estimates, think of WeScope. I mean, me and Frankie founded that together, and it's just taken off. And like my wife was like one of the first estimators for WeScope back in the day, and she's like pregnant with my daughter, and I just remember that like I thought this is going to be the new thing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to be you don't have to have a bunch of ride and run high skilled people. What you need is a centralized estimator and a bunch of technicians. But that meant all the technicians needed to be able to sketch and scope,
Yep.
but they don't have the skills, right? So we were trying to fix like teaching the techs to do a good job, like compliance, like you need to take these photos, you need to do this stuff. They were forgetting stuff. Getting them to be able to do a sketch and give scope notes, and then also trying to find a way to make moisture mapping like simple, maybe
Hmm.
is what
Hmm.
would you say, less technical. Like I love the IICRC documents, and I think there's so much value and information in them, but I mean, most of us have trouble with like finding the square foot of a surface area, right, in the field, right? And if you use the app, and even if the app does it for you, if you don't understand inset or offset when you answer the question, you can still make a mistake, right?
Hmm.
So, so yeah, so we tried to fix cost. We were trying to get faster sketches. We were trying to get faster scopes, and we wanted to kind of like think of like a security, like Paul Mart, the mall cop, right? He's sitting in front of the security screens, and there's like 500 security screens, and you can see everything and to kind of micromanage everything, but you're at one centralized location. Like that's what we imagined for
Yeah.
like the estimator of the company, you know.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so yeah, that's kind of long-winded, but yeah, those are the things
That
we were
was a
thinking.
that was a good answer. Those are all problem points that people talk about every single day. And a lot of people do talk about how you have to relate to younger restorers and younger people coming into the industry. And if the technology doesn't work and you're not tech driven, they're not going to be interested. Like
Well, I find that they get picked on a lot, like the work ethic's
they
not
do.
there and this and that. And like every generation probably says that too. Like we were
Yes.
the first generation to have fire. And then the next kids came on, they're like, oh, these kids, they don't know how hard it was. We had to invent fire. They were born with fire, like, it's probably kept happening. But I've found that people just don't like being told they're doing a bad job.
Yeah.
Right. And most of our systems and softwares, I feel like, are like what I call like tattletale systems, right? Like red
Hmm.
flag, right?
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you how many times, you put in the number and it gives you a red flag. And what do? Do they like, oh, well, this might be bad. Like, well, it doesn't tell you how to fix it. It just tells you red
Just
flag, right?
like
So I can call my boss. And if my boss is someone really knowledgeable, they're going to be like, here's what's going on, and here's what's that, and just save it. We're going to work on it. We'll do a training session when you get back. Or the boss is not that knowledgeable, is like, what the hell are you doing? Change it till it gets green. So like you
change
kind
it
of
till it
keep,
gets green.
yeah. Maybe I'm not supposed to say that online here, but
No,
I
I'm
feel,
sure it
I feel like,
happens. I don't doubt it.
yeah, yeah. It does. So I thought, like, why don't we give a system that, like, kind of like it says, like, if then, like, if you answer this and you get something bad, like, okay, your grains per pound's too high. Like, have you considered burping the house? Like, what's the reading outside, right? Like, you don't understand what that means? Click here to watch a video about grains per pound. Like, why can't we make the app as close to a coach as possible? That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking, right? It's also for me as a trainer and a consultant, like, how do you scale being a trainer and a consultant, right?
Hmm.
Like you don't. You train more people to be like you, but no one's going to have your same opinions, right?
Yeah. That's very true.
But an app can. I can like hard code an app to say like, if you do this, then do that, right?
Yeah.
So we got to this really detailed micromanaging to where like the technicians, like my son and the technician would leave the job site. They'd have to sit in the parking lot and they'd upload their photos and their notes and the report and their sketch, and they'd have to take a phone call. And I'd be like, hey, like it says here to upload a photo of your wettest reading, right? And there's a photo that says 27, but then it says type in the number and it says 98. Which one is it? And what I've found is like the guys really don't like that instant, like quick feedback. Like it also like lets them know like, someone's always watching, right? Like, so they go in and they fix it, right? Well, tomorrow, like it got to where they were making jokes like, oh, every time Kyler's on a job, like he has to go back in and we never have to go back in. So the guys started kind of competing on like that they got to leave when they went out the first time. Because like you go out
Oh,
the first time and you sit in the parking lot, you upload everything, and they're like, oh, I had to go back in 3 times, right? That means I did something wrong 3 times. And other guys are like, oh, I never have to go back in. I'm a first time. I'm in and I'm out. And I get to go to the next job. And I thought that was going to be like not scalable and exhausting. And like maybe I was just preventing them from even learning. And then I found after about 30 days, we had a really good technician. Like you can't fix like that they don't know how to take out cabinets with that, right?
yeah.
Like, but you can fix that they don't document well, that they don't sketch well, that they don't put in proper notes. So it got to where I have like three, under 21-year-old technicians that are like probably I'd put them up against like any technicians in the market for inspection and documentation. But like my son failed his ASD test, right? Like he came through my water class and I could tell he didn't like listening to dad. So I sent him to Kevin Fisher's ASD with dry A's and
Yep.
RSA, and he failed it. And Kevin called, he's like, Mitch, listen, I want you to know, it's not me.
Gosh.
Like, so
Oh,
it kind of proved to me, as much as I hate for my son to be the example of that, like it kind of proved to me that like you can still be pretty competent at what you do and fail some of these like traditional exams, right? Like he's still a great technician, but he doesn't understand vapor pressure differentials, right? But
yeah.
I don't really need him to know that. I can have that argument on the phone call if necessary, but I do need him to know like which data I need to have the conversation, right?
I love that your son is like the guinea pig in all this. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's probably it might have driven some of it. My brother was running the restoration company at the time when we started it. So he was the remodeler with no restoration experience, right?
Yep.
So he's also he was one of the guys with skills. He's the guy who could do the repair and rebuild and project manage. But the app was not his
Mm-hmm.
best suit, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So yeah, it's kind of Big Red One restoration really helped me push because I knew I could do it. I'd been there. I had a huge non-compete with next year, so obviously I couldn't do it as soon as I got out. I tried to do some other things, and a lot of my clients all sold. My consulting clients were all selling to
Sure.
ATIs and
Yeah.
customs, and well, they don't really need me anymore now. They've got these big
Yeah.
groups that own them. And COVID came, so I couldn't travel as much, right? So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, I'm going to go into a lab, and I'm going to start building this app. So, COVID, I guess, slowed us down on travel and training. And we opened up Big Red One Restoration 2021. And 2022, I was started building this app. And I said, I'm going to fix it all, right? Like a couple of years later, I'm like, I'm going to fix it all, right? A couple of years later, I'm going to say, I'm going to, like, it just keeps changing, but I think it keeps us in tune with what you need. There's some things that are cool to build, but you just don't need to, right? You don't need to build a new estimating platform. You plug in with Xactimate or CoreLogic, right? You don't need to build a new accounting software. You just integrate with
Mm-hmm.
somebody. But yeah, we're just trying to make it where like restorations like just a little bit more simple to scale and a little bit more thoughtful of the fact that like you have a lot of stuff to do that's all really important and like you don't need to make like onboarding or learning your app harder than it should be. It just has to like check these certain amount of boxes, right? And you really don't have to do everything, right? Like you don't have to do email, like integrate with someone that does, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do invoicing. I mean, there's a small percentage out there that people say, Mitch, no, we really would want invoicing. We don't like Xactimate or Symbility, right? So there's like a small module for like non-insurance invoicing, like people that do a lot of property manager work or
Okay.
carpet cleaning, like you want to be able to invoice a customer for something that's a deductible or non-insurance, right? But large and by and large, like if you're a restorer, you're using Xactimate or Symbility, and
Mm-hmm.
if not, you're doing time and material, which you can track time and material in this program, right? So we're just trying to check as many boxes as we can. I hate the like nickel and dime feeling that's going on right now. Like this platform's your photos, and this platform's your moisture mapping, and this is your 3D scanning, and here's your invoicing, and oh, here's your data and AI, and I'm like, it kind of feels like everyone just knows we're super profitable and they just like keep making these niche products. And it's great that they integrate. I mean, I think that the thing should integrate, but like I think that integrations are out of necessity, not out of choice, right? Like,
Yes.
like we don't, you have to integrate with, CoreLogic and Stability and stuff. You need those integrations. Like Matterport, like no one's going to build a Matterport overnight, right? So you need to integrate with something like that. But if it's not 3D scanning or insurance required, softwares, then like we probably rather have like one ring to rule them all, right?
Yes. So what does
So
your like dev team look like? What does it look like behind the scenes? And what are you doing how long have you officially been marketing and like when did you start testing with restores and stuff like that? Like where are you at in that process?
yeah, so good question. So we did a soft launch September at the Experience Trade Show. We did a soft launch there. Um, Told myself we didn't want to take on more than 10 users, and I kind of wanted to babysit the onboarding and the process. So they really were like 10 users that were paying for software. They were getting like full on consulting, but they were just paying a little bit of money for. But I just
That's
really wanted to
awesome.
make sure we kind of lock in that process of what it looks like onboarding. And I mean, version 1.0 of any software has always got bugs in it, right?
Yeah.
We're not perfect. No one is, right? Software is expensive. It takes a long time. It's prone to mistakes, right? Every time there's an update, right? So we did that. We kind of really started pushing for this year in January, right? We brought on Lee Patterson.
Yep.
Kind of the timing was right to where I was feeling like we had enough customers on board. I've managed this stuff enough, like 24/7, dev team, three time zones of a dev team between US and overseas, and me running it, and my wife is our general manager running it in our business, and these, 5 or 10 clients we've got. And I was like, wow, like I really need to like get someone focused on like making sure we sell it to new people, because I just wanted to put my head in and like make it
Yep.
perfect.
Yep.
But I didn't want to do sales and business development, right? I mean, when I'm teaching a training class, if I can talk about it or show it, it kind of became where like it's something new I showed during a training class, but like there was no one dedicated to the business development side of it. So Lee Patterson came on board in January. We really started pushing it and started trying to build those industry relationships, going after, approvals and integrations. And so this is really it. This is kind of our coming out, live pushing. And we knew you were the lady to talk to when we really wanted to really get it out there, right? I have like the founder's problem to where you want everything to be perfect, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
I'm sure you deal with that every magazine that comes out, right? It's like
Everyone.
yeah, like but
But
if you an engineer told me, a CIO, I use a CIO as a consultant, and he said, Mitch, if you wait until it's perfect before you start pushing it to the public, like
yeah.
it's too late.
Yeah.
And I was afraid that would be me, right? He said you
Mhm.
should kind of have butterflies in your stomach when you're pushing it out, right? Because like
Yep.
you know what it does, but you also know what you want it to do and it doesn't do yet. And I said
Mhm.
that's how you're going to feel for the rest of your life.
Yes.
So I will say that that's one thing. Being like I was a vice president next year, and I wanted everything to be perfect. I remember when we brought on Rainbow, and I was doing Dry Link, and me and Garrett were debating. I was like, it's not ready to go. He's like, well, that's why you're the product owner and the VP, and I'm the CEO, right? And I was like, I just want to punch you. Like a couple of years later, like I sent him a text. I was like, hey, you were right. I kind of understand what you meant now,
Uh-huh.
right? It
Sometimes, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it just makes sense that sometimes you've got to, push yourself out there, right? And nothing's going to be perfect. You're always going to have features that you want in a
Yep.
roadmap. And the best thing to do though is not to do it in a lab with like 5 or 10 people. It's to get as many people
Hmm.
using it and giving you feedback as possible. So that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to just get as many people in the system, and they're all basically a Byrom training consulting client and a Restoration OS user until it gets to the point to where like I feel like everything's perfect, which probably will be a long time. But no, it's exciting. It's exciting, big stuff.
It is big stuff. I read Sheryl Sandberg's book years ago, and one of the things that she said in there is sometimes done is better than perfect. And she took that kind of like into Facebook and their mentality as they were growing it. And she was the COO, I guess. And so same mentality, right? Sometimes done is better than perfect. And there's like not failing forward because you're not failing if it's done and it's good, but you gotta like keep pressing it forward because you're never going to get to that perfect point. And so we keep learning and evolving and going from there. So sometimes done is better than perfect. And
I like that. I like that. Dude, I'm the best at giving this advice to other people. I'm like, I'll talk about military strategy and like a perfect plan tomorrow means you're dead today. You got to execute today. I'll do all that stuff. So, no, it's been when you shift hats, you go from something that you feel like you're expert at, right? Like I feel like an expert at restoration and coaching and helping people grow their business. But then when it comes to kind of competing in a software market, you realize it's like, it's a big, I mean, our industry is, I don't know, it's probably doubled in this amount of software providers and the amount of time that I've been
easily,
building this. Yeah. And so
easily.
I find myself like, well, gosh, like people are kind of inundated with technology right now.
They
I feel
are.
like there's some frustration around it, to be honest, right? So, my goal is not to like add a new piece of technology, it's just to reduce the amount of technologies that you have to use.
Hmm.
And the frustrating thing that I've always felt is when you have an engineer build something for a contractor, there's always a difference of opinion, right? Like, that old joke about you get an engineer, an architect, and a contractor all in the same room, and they all have a different opinion of how it gets done.
Yes.
The only one that actually puts it together and makes it work is the contractor, right?
Yeah.
Like two are theoretical, and one actually has to deliver the finished product, right?
Yep.
So, I feel like there's just a tremendous value. We eat our own dog food. Like we're using the app that we build. And so, if you say, "Oh, this is terrible," it's like, yeah, that's terrible for us too. Here's how we're dealing with it while we're waiting on it to be, developed, right?
Yep.
Oh, I really wish we had this integration, dude. We're talking to them right now. We do too. Like,
Yeah.
here's why we're doing it, right? And some things in the industry game, there's a little bit of politics. There's a little bit of,
Oh yeah.
you got to kind of earn your street cred a little bit. Like, no one's going to give you these huge integrations until you show that you're viable. Also
Yep.
with technology, like you can't like go build an app on Fiverr and have it out next week, right? Like, there are some barriers to doing technology the right way,
Yeah.
and it takes a little bit more time to do things the right way, right? You can't just spin it up overnight. So
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. So, all right, so I'm trying to decide what direction I want to take it. So let's talk about AI a little bit. You're so technology forward. One of the things that I was thinking about as I'm listening to you talk is I think it's really interesting because there's you and maybe two other people that I can think of specifically in the technology space in our industry that are so geared towards solving the industry's problems. And I love that. So kind of like you've gone from like these different roles trying to solve different problems that you've seen within the industry, kind of this serial entrepreneur and a problem solver. And there is a small segment of people that are like that. And the top three that I could think of are all in technology, which I think is really interesting. So, okay, so let's talk about AI then. Where do you see it being used now? And I don't realize this is a big question. Where do you see it going? Like maybe in the next 5 years? Like how do you see restorers using it fruitfully now and where it could be going?
yeah, big question. I'm trying to decide if you just called me like one of the top three nerds, or not. Um, no, I think that AI is big, and it's definitely going to have an impact in our industry. I think there's a lot of hype around the term AI. I think a lot of people are suggesting that they use AI, and some maybe are not actually using as much AI as they are using like machine learning and algorithms, right? Like, I'll give you an example that there is, AI adjusting is a big conversation, right?
Mhm.
Automatically adjusting files, right? Next gear with QA Assist,
Yep.
the Ask Amy or the DocuSketch that acquired now, a Servio, a Crawford Contractor connection, right? And I think that there's a lot of people think, oh, this is like AI adjusting, and really like it looks like AI, and it is changing our industry a lot, and it floats on that, but it's really like it's really just a logical formatted, like if then, like if you bill for a DHU more than this many days, then red flag it, or if you bill for this much demo and you only remove this much square foot, then it should be a 20-yard dumpster, right?
Mhm.
So I think there's a lot of algorithms right now that are being implemented really well, and it's being marketed as AI, right? So
Mhm.
I don't think AI has made as big of an impact in our industry yet as it should have, or maybe will be. The future of that, like the first AI, I mean, our product has, we rely on Apple a lot. We prefer Apple. We suggest Apple. I wish we could tell you we only did Apple. We did have to spin up a version of Android as well because some people just want to use it. But like one of our major
Some
features
people
that we
just want to
love is one of our major features is the Apple the room scan, right? So the technician like scans the room and then answers a bunch of questions like, are the walls wet? Yes. If yes, like what's the material? Drywall. Is it single layer, double layer, right? And really, all that stuff is just like logical. We're building an algorithm, right?
Yeah.
Like the wall is wet. Yes. It's drywall. How many layers? Is it insulated? What's the reading for moisture, right? What's your scope? But the way the sketch is done uses AI, right? I mean, the room scan LiDAR technology, it's using AI to kind of correct and update and draw that sketch perfectly and learn whether that's an angle or not. So I think the documentation piece of sketching and scoping a room, I mean, Yimbo, Host AI, some of these groups that are coming out there right now, computer vision mixed with AI equals
Mhm.
suggested estimates. I think that's going to be probably the largest, most impactful piece of AI to our industry. Um, is it going to happen in the next 5 years? I couldn't answer that. Is it going to be extremely impactful and potentially displacing? Yes, I think so. Right. I think that you're already seeing the skill set. If you look at Farmers Insurance, the amount of layoffs they've done of adjusters, you look at some of these other companies, right? The skill set of being an estimator I mean, if you think about it, they used to have to sketch and scope and use Xactimate. I mean, our app puts every field technician as a sketcher and a scoper, right, on the site. And they get the sketch and the scope instantly within the next, as soon as they click on send, the sketch and scope's at the office for an estimator. So estimators right now became a data entry expert. Think about it. There's a tick sheet, there's a sketch, we put it in. You trace the Matterport and you type in the line items. Well, you know, we're having those strategic conversations with the CoreLogic and Sensibilities and Xactimates of the world to where, like, if we already know that data, we can already transfer that line item in. Like, if we know this is a sketch and we know you removed baseboard, we can create that line item for you. So then what really comes into play is there a way to, like, cut out the algorithm and make it with AI? So I think that the future of the industry will be, homeowners getting a scan request from their phone, and they scan a room and it says, boom, it pops up like, this is your it's category 2 drywall removal, all this stuff, right? This is your suggested estimate, $7,402, right? And here's your buttons, and you click on here, send it to preferred provider. Click on here, choose a local guy, and I can search Big Red One or whoever from my Google, top 3 Google, or I can click right here that says transfer ACH to my bank account. And the automobile insurance industry already figured out what they click on most often, right? It goes to the bank account and they go to Facebook and say, hey, any one of my friends do body repair, right? So I think that that's going to be significantly impactful. I think the only thing that kind of keeps our industry safe, if I'm being honest, and keeps it like a profitable, skilled industry that gives us a lot of volume, is that the adoption is going to be pretty low on that. I mean, the automobile industry has been using, photos to create automobile estimates for 10 years, and their adoption still like single digits to low double digits, right? So most people don't just want the money and to manage the claim, right? Most people want it taken care of. Like, if you're for most insurance carriers, your low value homes, your homeowners that don't, the same ones that are beating you up that they can't afford the deductible, or they like, hey, you scratched the wall, I don't want to pay my deductible, because those customers, I think, are going to kind of cash out a little bit more, but you're still going to have a lot of work. I do think that there's a piece of that will put the homeowners, the insurance companies, communicating with us less and sending the checks to the homeowners very quickly so they can settle their claims quickly, right? Digital payment solutions are a big thing, right? What is there? You got Adam over there at the InsurePay or Simple Pay. You got Mark over there at Security, right? So these, like, the first integration is like, oh, let's get the mortgage payment check, and that's going to be beneficial to you as contract. The next part of that will be like, oh, if we attach that to this AI and we scan the room, then they get the payment instantly, right? That's the stage 2 of that, whether anyone's acknowledged it yet or not. This is just how things progress. So I think there's going to be a future where we're kind of like body shops, to where we're going to job sites and we have to put together a supplement instead of an initial estimate. And I think the only way we can prevent that from becoming like the future is if we get way faster at getting the estimates. That kind of comes to like a core problem we're trying to fix, right? The whole centralize your estimating, have a high skilled remote in-house estimator or third-party company, right? And like, get your sketch to them and your scope notes to them as soon as your technician gets on the job site, and send it to them, and get your estimate out in 24 hours. And some people might think I'm crazy on that. And it's okay. You can think I'm crazy, but I talk to these carriers. Like, I don't just train on one side, I train on both sides. I do a lot of consulting for some carriers in the past couple of years. And the average estimate time from like contractor arrives on site to the estimate gets uploaded and all the documentation they requested, not like the initial upload when they're like, oh, we don't have photos, we don't have the company header, we don't have this, like, but actually getting everything they need is 9 days. So contractor gets on site, 9 days later, they get the estimate uploaded. Like, you can't blame them for trying to find a way to shorten that as an industry, right? Like most of the TPAs say you need that in 3 days. And there's some contractors that say it's impossible. There's others that are like top performers in the country and on all the list, and they do it. And then the other guys will say, yeah, but they're a bait and switch model because they just upload it and the estimate's not right, and they hit them with a supplement at the end. Well, that's why it's called an estimate, right? Like, it's as good as like, we all know you don't know what the total invoice is until at the end of a job, right?
No.
Every contractor at the end of the job, you get the final invoice. Everything's an estimate until then. It's probably even on your contract, right? But these insurance companies, they're losing money if they don't pull out enough to pay claims, and they need to have those reserves set. So one of the things we're trying to, we hope it's kind of an offensive maneuver with technology for contractors, is that if we can help you like scan and sketch and scope really fast, and you can like either centralize your estimator or use a third-party estimator, or get it out super fast to the insurance company, no one's going to like judge you if there's a supplement at the end, right? And
Yeah.
they're just going to be happy that they get the information, because Brandon Burton used to say this when I worked together, and he's still on the S500 committee for IICRC. And he says, information is not like wine. It doesn't get better with age, right? Give me good
No.
information, give me bad information, but I want it now, right? So I think if we fix that problem in our industry, it doesn't go towards those homeowner scan self-pay out. I think if contractors had the same problem we've had for 15 years of not getting the information faster, I think the only thing that insurance companies and TPAs can do is go to these techs, like give it to the homeowner because they're at the house already, let them scan their room, and let's get it, because they don't want to get sued for payment processing too long. Is there a part of it where it's going to be less money? Of course it's going to be less money because it's less accurate data, right? It's not coming from an expert, right? So I think you got to get ahead of it or you're going to get rolled over by it, right?
Yeah.
So I think that, as contractors, we've got to kind of like embrace like the 3D scanning, the quick estimate uploads, the data sharing as soon as possible.
Mhm.
If we don't, there's going to be a solution that comes out, I think, that's going to kind of change the market in a way that makes it, not as exciting or valuable as it used to be, right?
Yes. Perfect.
So
Okay. Where do people find you? How do people get a hold of you? How do they find out more about Restoration OS? All those great, important things.
yeah, restoration-os.com. You can find us there. You can submit to request more information. You can request a free trial demo, right? You'll probably go to Lee Patterson. You'll have a wonderful guy follow up with you. You can see us at the trade shows, right? So we'll be at Access, the Alacrity Show. We'll be at Crawford Contractor Connection. We'll be at the Experience. Core Collective, I think we're trying to go there. So every place you're going to be at a booth, we're going to be at a booth probably too. So we'll all see each other there.
Yes.
So yeah, that's how they can get in touch with us. And we'd love to show our product, take your feedback. If you say I love it, great. If you say I hate it, we're going to listen probably that more than we're great. And we're just kind of committed to trying to like give you quick technology that makes things easier. We think that I just want to make sure this industry is still around for my son to take over one day, if possible. Like not everyone just wants to maximize their value and sell in the next 2 years, right? And there's a bit of me, and I know that you do this restoring kindness, and I know that there's some people take this industry like they identify with it, and some people like it's just a job, right?
Yep.
But like this industry for me is like I dropped out of college. My son was born in high school, right? Like I've been able to provide for my family without a college degree. The Air Force didn't work out. I got out early. So, I don't just want to exit and sell our company. I want it like, the way my 13-year-old is probably not going to be in college. I can tell from his middle school grades, right? So I want our kids to be able to take over this business and run it. And I think some people do want a legacy business. So you need a system that's going to like, that's gonna grow with the times, I think. So that's what we're doing here.
Love it.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. It's done. It's not perfect, but it's done. We're going to keep moving forward and keep moving forward. Yes.
One small step for restoration, one huge leap for Mitch Byrom.
I have one of Tom McGuire's Astros. I should have had him.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I love it.
Perfect right there. All right, Mitch. Well, thank you very much and congrats on all the work that you've put in, and thank you for all that you do for the industry.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.